Hey, guess what? It's time for another prediction video. oh. Give me my theme music. I know stuff. Oh, yeah, good morning. That is Uncle Lou here. That's right. It is me, Lustradamus, live on YouTube for you. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already and hit the thumbs up. I make these pointless, barely watchable college football videos almost every single day of the year round. There is no off season here. There's just the part of the season where we don't play games, but that's coming to an end soon, and that brings us to where we're at now, prediction season. Every single year around this time, I start doing these videos. Now, unlike a lot of people who will kind of put a schedule up, go through it a little bit, and then just go, probably going 8-4 or 7-5. I actually pinpoint wins and losses. So if I think a team's going to go 10-2, I find the two games I think they're going to lose, and you'll see when we get here in a second that I'm actually going to go through this schedule here game by game and give you a winner and a loser every single week for Colorado, and we'll see how I do. Now, last year was not what people expected, I don't think, from Colorado in a positive way if you're Colorado. They ended up going 9-3 in the regular season, and while the regular season didn't exactly end, or the season didn't exactly end maybe the way Colorado fans had hoped it would at, say, the midpoint of the season, they still overachieved almost every single realistic expectation that people had for them in 2024. It, of course, sort of culminated with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy. Shedeur Sanders had another really great year at quarterback. Both of those players, of course, are gone. But they did go 9-3. A loss late in the year on the road at Kansas really hurt them, sort of knocked them out of the Big 12 championship game picture. They went on to play in the Alamo Bowl against BYU. They did lose that game, finishing the season 9-4. So, again, all positives there. Most people had Colorado winning 5, maybe 6 games last year in Deion's second year. They end up going 9-3 in the regular season, 9-4 after the bowl loss. So that's the good news. The bad news is the loss of two of their better players, probably their two best players, in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And when you look back at their season last year, while the record was good, it's hard to find a lot of good wins. By my count, they only beat 2 teams with a winning record. They did manage to beat Baylor early in the year in overtime, 38-31. Baylor ended up going 8-5, and then later on in the year, coming off of a bye week in November, they won on the road at Texas Tech, who I believe was also 8-5. But when you go through their list of wins from last year, they beat North Dakota State in a close game, 31-26. They then lost to Nebraska. Nebraska may have been the best team they played last year outside of the Big 12. It was the best team they played outside of the Big 12, and they came up short in that one, 28-10. Nebraska's defense really gave them fits. They then beat in-state lower classification school Colorado State. So in the non-con, they went 2-1, beating 2 lower classification schools, an FCS school and a group of 5, and then losing to the only Power 4 opponent they played in the non-con on the road at Nebraska. Then was that good win against Baylor, and that was a good win. They beat UCF on the road, but UCF was absolutely terrible last year. They lost to Kansas State, who was about a middle-of-the-road team in the Big 12, more towards the better half. I was disappointed in Kansas State last year, to be fair. I thought they would have ended up in the Big 12 championship game. They came short. One of the reasons Colorado did beat them, though, Colorado lost to them 31-28. On the road at Arizona, Colorado had a win. Arizona, again, a terrible team. They beat Cincinnati, another not so good team. Then they had the win at Texas Tech, which I do think was a really good win. They beat Utah, and in a normal year, that would be a really good win, but Utah had its worst year in a long time last year, going 5-7. They were without their quarterback, Cam Rising, and a bunch of other pieces. Just not a good year for Utah. And then a really bad loss there towards the end of the year on the road at Kansas, which again sort of cost them a spot in the Big 12 title game. They finished up the regular season destroying Oklahoma State 52-0. But like Utah, one of the worst Oklahoma State teams also that we've seen in a long, long time. So some good, some not so good for Colorado from last season heading into next season. Some key components to replace, mainly quarterback Shedeur Sanders and sort of dual threat star wide receiver / defensive back and Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter. Now, offensively, they bring in a 5-star true freshman at quarterback who I really like. He's from the state of Georgia. I wanted Georgia to go after him. Georgia came up short. He lands at Colorado. Julian Lewis. I think he can be really, really good. He's a dual threat kid, runs around, can make all the throws. Now, he reclassified. He's in college a year early. I don't think he's going to start for Colorado. I think he's the best quarterback on their roster in terms of ceiling and potential, but they brought a transfer in Caden Salter, who's got a ton of experience at Liberty. He's thrown for over 7,500 yards total in the last 3 seasons, so over 2,500 yards a season, 77 touchdowns. And like Julian Lewis, he can run around too. So sort of fits the style of offense that Colorado was looking to play in 2025, plus comes with a ton of experience. I think it's going to be Caden Salter that gets to start. Now, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Julian Lewis get some significant playing time. And if Colorado stumbles multiple times first half of the season, maybe they make the switch and go with Julian Lewis for the rest of the way. But I do think Julian Lewis is sort of the quarterback of the future at Colorado. I'm a buyer. I'm a buyer on him. The problem is I don't know who they're going to be throwing the ball to. They lost most of their wide receiver targets from last year. They had a great passing game last year with Shedeur Sanders and those wide receivers, but they're all gone. It's all brand new, and they just don't have a running game to fall back on. In Deion's 2 years at Colorado, Colorado has been the worst rushing team in the Power 5, period. No matter what stat you look at, total yards, yards per rush, touchdown runs, first down runs, whatever it is, they rank dead last in every single rushing category combined over the last 2 seasons. The offensive line has been bad, and the running backs have not been anything great either. I'm not all that confident the running game can improve that much from last year to this year. They did bring Marshall Faulk in, NFL Hall of Famer and former college great, to take over the running back room as running backs coach. And I like that move. I like Marshall Faulk. I think everybody does. I don't know that Marshall Faulk's going to make that offensive line all that much better. Like most years, they've gone heavy into the portal to try to replace a bunch of these pieces at wide receiver and offensive line, and we'll see how it comes together. I find it hard to believe that Colorado will be as good offensively in 2025, though, as they were in 2024. I don't know if there's any school in the country that could replace in 1 year what Colorado got from Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter offensively last year, but we'll see. Defensively, they haven't been great overall in Deion's first couple of years at Colorado, but the secondary was kind of their strong point for a lot of the reasons we've talked about already. Travis Hunter had Shiloh Sanders back there as well at safety. They're both gone. They're replacing 3 starters from that secondary. So going to be a lot of new faces in the secondary. So maybe this is the year for Colorado that kind of the front 7 starts to step up and maybe become the heart of that defense. Although they're going to need some significant contributions from some kind of out of nowhere type player. Now, they do get Arden Walker back after fighting injuries most of 2024, and they bring in a couple of transfers like they do at almost every position group along that defensive front. Jaheim Otis and Tavion Coleman. And Samuel Okunlola, I believe is his name. Colorado runs the 4-2-5, so it's going to be 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 people back in the secondary the majority of the time. A reworked secondary, a defensive front that needs to play a lot better to try to take up some of that slack they're losing in the secondary by losing players like Shiloh Sanders and Travis Hunter. I look at Colorado last year and I feel like they overachieved, which is a compliment. Their win total last year from Vegas was sitting at around 5 wins. They ended up 9-3. Like I said, they exceeded everyone's expectations. Maybe the season didn't end as well as some Colorado fans hoped it would, especially when you got to the midpoint of the season and saw that Colorado was alive for the Big 12 championship game, and that kind of slipped away at the end. Maybe it was a little disappointing, but when you look back on it overall, they blew everyone's expectations out of the water. I don't know that they can repeat that type of success in 2025. I just feel like they lost too many key contributors at a program that doesn't recruit at a level to be able to replace that type of production in 1 year. What does Vegas think about Colorado's chances this year? And again, you can take these numbers with a grain of salt because these numbers were way off last year. The win total last year for Colorado sat at around 5. This year it's at 6.5 or 7. In fact, let's see what the exact number is. The win total for Colorado is sitting at where are you, Colorado? It's in here somewhere. Here we go. The win total for Colorado is sitting at 6.5 for 2025. Again, last year it was sitting around 5 and they won 9. So The win total being at 6.5 isn't an indication they're going to win 6.5. That just tells you what sort of the betting public's expectations are for Colorado in terms of a win total. Now, when you talk about winning the Big 12, they're 11th in the odds when it comes to winning the Big 12. That's the bad news. Again, the good news is they had worse odds than that last year and ended up 9-3 and were one game away from playing for the Big 12 championship. But when you look at the Big 12, the front runner right now is Arizona State, followed really closely by Kansas State, Utah, Texas Tech, and Baylor. You go a little bit further down, you've got TCU and then BYU. Iowa State follows that up, then Kansas and Cincinnati. Then you get to Colorado in terms of the odds to win the Big 12. The teams with worse odds than Colorado in the Big 12 would be Houston, West Virginia, Arizona, Central Florida, and Oklahoma State. So Colorado 11th in terms of odds to win the Big 12, and expected win total sitting at 6.5. My expectations for Colorado, Deion's back for his third year. He's got sort of an all-star cast of characters when it comes to a coaching staff, in that he's got a lot of former high-level NFL players on that coaching staff. I'm not convinced that all of those coaches are elite-level coaches. Being good at something doesn't automatically make you great at coaching it. Not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, just because Marshall Faulk was one of the all-time best running backs ever doesn't necessarily make him a great running backs coach. Same with Warren Sappel on the defensive line and so forth and so on. So we'll see. The defense needs to get a lot better. Colorado overall in the trenches on both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line, have not been good so far in Deion's first 2 years. Shedeur Sanders at quarterback was sort of an eraser in that when the offensive line broke down, he was able to scramble around and make sort of a lot of kind of playground throws, kind of just like the old school when you would draw a play up in the dirt. He'd just kind of run around back there, chunk it up, and one of those receivers, whether it was Travis Hunter or one of the others, would kind of go up and get it. I don't know that they're going to have that sort of level of wide receiver and quarterback play this year. The offensive line is going to have to play a lot better. And truthfully, no matter how good Caden Salton or Julian Lewis ends up being, or those wide receivers end up being, if that running game doesn't improve and get any better than what we've seen from Colorado over the last 2 years, which, like I mentioned, has been the worst in football over the last 2 years, it's really not going to matter who's playing quarterback and wide receiver. You're going to hit a ceiling every single year. Last year being 9-3, I had really good offense last year. Some serious talent at the wide receiver and quarterback position, still unable to make the Big 12 championship game. Football is the ultimate team sport. Defensively, they have to get better in sort of key situations and along the defensive line. And we'll see if they can do any of that in 2025. But let's take a look at the schedule. We're going to go through it game by game. I'm going to give you a winner and a loser for every single week, and we'll see what Colorado might look like in terms of a record for this upcoming football season. Now, they start out with what I think is an interesting game here on the road or at home against Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech makes the travel out west to Colorado. The Buffaloes hosting the Yellow Jackets. Georgia Tech, like Colorado, I think was surprisingly good last year, at least relative to preseason expectations. Brent Key's been there for several years now. Haynes King returns at quarterback for Georgia Tech. I think the ground game of Georgia Tech here is going to be too much for Colorado to contain. I think Georgia Tech will chew the clock up in this game, keep Colorado's offense off the field, and I think Georgia Tech goes into Colorado and gets the win. I think Colorado starts 0-1. I like Georgia Tech's chances this year. I think they've got an outside shot to potentially make the ACC championship game. They got a huge matchup with Clemson in week 3 or 4, and if they happen to win that game, anything would be possible at that point for Georgia Tech. I just feel like Georgia Tech is a veteran team. I don't think this travel is going to bother them. Haynes King has been around forever. And I just don't think that Colorado in the first week of the season is going to have what it takes to win that game. I've got Colorado starting 0-1. They get on to good foot the next week with a win at home against Delaware Blue Hens, whatever that is. I think Colorado will handle them easily. Probably see, that might be the first time you see a significant amount of Julian Lewis at quarterback. Caden Salter I think Caden Salter is going to end up getting the start at Colorado again. We'll see what happens when the season rolls around. But if that's the case, I would expect him to play most of that Georgia Tech game. I think that'll be a close, tight game into the second half. But in this Delaware game, Colorado should be able to pull away here in the second half, and maybe we get our first significant look at Julian Lewis there, quarterback for the true freshman 5-star quarterback for Colorado. A Big 12 game in week 3, a conference game on the road at Houston. And I think Colorado gets the win here. Houston has been, I almost said treading water, but I don't even know that they're doing that. Houston has found themselves in an odd spot to me in that I think they were better when they were a group of 5 team. And I don't just mean their record, because you can say, well, yeah, of course their record is worse. They were a group of 5 team. Now they're playing a Power 4 schedule as a member of the Big 12. Of course, their record's going to be worse. That's not even what I mean. I mean, you just watch them play. They had better players 3 and 4 years ago, it seems like to me, than they do now. They just don't seem to be in a good spot to me. It is a road game for Colorado, and you kind of never know what's going to happen there. But I don't see Houston beating Colorado. I'm going to give Colorado their second straight win. They're 2-1. Then you come back home and host Wyoming. I think this is a game again that Colorado can win. Now Wyoming has proven to be a tough out in the past. On occasion against some Power 4 or previously Power 5 teams, but a home game for Colorado here, you got to have this one. This is the type of game maybe you lose in year 1 if you're Dion. You can't lose this game in year 3, and I don't think they do. Colorado is 3-1. They stay home the following week and host BYU. A lot of people are really high on BYU. Really good coach, a veteran team. I think BYU gets the win. I think Colorado takes their second loss of the season, their second loss in the month of September, and they're sitting with 2 losses heading into October. On the road at TCU and then home against Iowa State. There's a possibility Colorado loses both of these games. I think TCU is going to be improved over last year. How improved? We'll find out. It's a road game. You got to play them there. If I was Colorado, I'd rather have these 2 things switched. I'd rather host TCU because I feel like Colorado's got a better chance of winning that game than Iowa State. I'm going to give Colorado the win here on the road at TCU. But boy, this is a challenge here. That TCU game is stuffed right between the BYU and the Iowa State game. I think you lose to Iowa State at home. I'm going to give you the win at TCU, but boy, that's a tricky stretch of games there. Colorado could lose all 3. I've got them going 2-1 there. BYU at TCU, home against Iowa State. They beat TCU on the road, lose at home to BYU and Iowa State. Then you have a bye week. Come out of that, you play on the road at Utah. This is a game Colorado could win. Utah is sort of turning pages here. Cam Rising has finally left after 8 or 9 years as a college student, so they got some new parts and pieces there, but they still have probably the best coach team in the Big 12. A difficult road environment for Colorado. I think Utah gets the win. Come back home, play Arizona. It's setting up for them to have another disappointing season. They lost their best player last year, and even with him, they were a terrible team. I think Colorado gets the win at home over Arizona. And then you got to go on the road and play West Virginia. You got to win this one. I mean, we're getting to the point here where bowl eligibility might be hanging in balance for Colorado. You look at the remaining schedule after this West Virginia game, you have a bye week, and then you finish up with Arizona State and Kansas State, who I think are going to be 2 of the best teams in the Big 12. I'm going to give Colorado this win on the road at West Virginia, but like that TCU game, this is dangerous here. And if Colorado loses this game at West Virginia, they could miss a bowl game. Bye week, then you come back home, play Arizona State. I think that's a loss. Sam Levitt is back at quarterback. They had the best run defense in the Big 12 last year, which means Colorado likely won't gain a yard on the ground against them. And I just think Arizona State's going to be too much. Colorado loses another one. And then on the road at Kansas State, I missed on Kansas State last year. I'm probably going to take another swing with them this year. I really like their quarterback, Avery Johnson. You got to play them there. I'm going to give the win to Kansas State. So if you go back and you add all that up, that's a loss to Georgia Tech, a loss to BYU, a loss to Iowa State, a loss to Utah, and then a loss to Arizona State and Kansas State. That's 6-6. Is that right? I seriously doubt that's what Colorado fans are going to want to hear. But again, it's not just Colorado. When you take a lot of programs that are in sort of that Colorado tier of teams, and you lose a player like Shedeur Sanders, or you lose two players like Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, there are not very many teams within that sort of tier of teams where I would put Colorado that could replace the type of talent, production, leadership, all the things that come along with having those two guys on the team. There's not a lot of teams that could replace that. And I don't think Colorado can either. I think it's really going to hurt them. Again, I like the coaching staff. We'll see on the wide receivers. The quarterback situation is up in the air. The offensive line is being reworked. The defensive line, you're crossing your fingers. 3 new starters in the secondary. It seems like a reset year for Colorado. I think 6-6 and making a bowl game is probably best case scenario, and that's what I have them at. If things go south here, if there's injuries at the wrong position, whatever else, 4-8 or 5-7 is a real possibility. But I've got Colorado at 6-6 for 2025. Be sure to let me know down below where you think I'm wrong, and give me my theme music.